All right. Well, thank you all for joining. We appreciate it. This is Happy New Year. This is our January edition for the AFDCS education seminars. We are very fortunate to have Pete McClure here, who is going to be talking about computer cachet making 101. Good, interesting topic. First one we've had so far to talk about making cachets, how they develop and everything else. I'll give my usual reminders. I'm going to mute all the lines just so that way there's no interruptions throughout. I know Pete is ready to answer any questions when we get to the end. This will also be available. The AFDCS is starting up a YouTube channel, so this will be available on the YouTube channel. Probably be roughly a week. It shouldn't be more than a week after this that will be up and running. So if you do miss it, or you know of somebody that missed it that you want to pass it along to, the link will be there as well for publication. Last thing that I just wanted to throw out there is for those of you who have any interest in doing a presentation at any point in time or have interest in seeing a certain topic, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is mlake, L-A-K-E, the number 7 @gmail.com. Feel free to email me any suggestions that you have, thoughts, and so on. And certainly if you yourself are interested in doing a presentation, we'd love to have you. We've got a few coming up on first day cover exhibiting. We have one on a couple specialist collections coming up in February, March, and April so far. But we're looking to fill up the summer months. So if you have any interest, please let me know. With that, we've got a good quorum here of 35. So Pete is on the line. I know Pete has an introduction of himself, so I'm gonna keep it brief. I'll turn it over to him. Thank you all again.
You just need to screen share.
Yep. Do you have it?
Let's see. No.
Let's see.
Okay. This host, if I will. There we go.
See if that works for you.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, can you see my cover page? Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I was a little uncertain whether or not, we get more than a couple of people, but tonight's topic is computer cachet making 101. When Michael asked me to do a presentation about making first day cover cachets on the computer, it's the first thing that jumped in my mind. So that's the name of tonight's presentation. The agenda for tonight is I'm going to introduce myself to you. I know some of you know me, many of you do not. Then we'll get into a brief history of what is a cachet, what do they look like over the years. I think it's important to kind of look back at what's happened in the past and what's available now. I'm going to talk about the software and the equipment I use to make computer generated cachets. Then we're going to make a cache on the computer. And then lastly, I've got some show and tell covers I've made to kind of give you an indication of how the covers I've made have evolved over the years. I'm retired. I live in the cornfields of Iowa. I often joke about that, but it's a wonderful place to live. If you've never been to Iowa, here's what you'll see when you visit.
Interstate 80, Iowa. Mississippi River. Davenport. Corn, 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 corn. What's that smell? Corn, 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 Iowa City. Corn, 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 corn. Look, a tree. Corn, 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 corn. Corn, 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 corn. There's that smell again. Corn, 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 don't you find Missouri River?
It's a cute little song that I found recently about Interstate 80 in Iowa, and it pretty much is true. That's what you'll see when you visit. One of the other things you'll see if you're on Interstate 80 in Iowa is the Iowa 80 truck stop. It's the world's largest truck stop. It's in eastern Iowa. It's been there since 1965. Fuel prices in Illinois are very expensive. So truckers know that if they can make it through Illinois without needing fuel, they can buy cheap fuel in Iowa. And if they're going eastbound, everybody fills up before they go through Illinois. So that's part of the reason this thing exists, but it's become a destination. It's a huge thing. It's got 220 acres. Gets 5,000 visitors a day. That main building in Santa is full of truck parts and all kinds of food and things like that. It's 67,000 square feet. It's parking for 900 trucks, and there's 450 people that work there. It's like a small town in Iowa. If you're on Interstate 80 in Iowa and you don't stop at the Iowa 80, you'll have missed something. 50 miles north of that particular thing is the Field of Dreams in Dyersville, Iowa. The Field of Dreams is one of my favorite movies. Recently, the Field of Dreams was enhanced with a new ball field. Major League Baseball spent $6 million building a new 8,000 seat stadium in a ballpark that's just a few hundred yards from the original movie set. Last August, Major League Baseball had the first major league game in Iowa. The Yankees played the White Sox. The White Sox beat them in a really great game with Tim Anderson hitting a walk-off home run in the ninth inning to beat the Yankees. It was also one of the most expensive games. The tickets were originally sold in a lottery. There were only 8,000 seats, but there was a tremendous demand for it. And the average price, for a seat, there went anywhere from $1,400 to $3,900. And to get a ticket just to get into the event without a seat went for about $1,300. So this was quite an event. And if you saw the game, you probably saw one of the best games played last year.
Hey, this heaven? No. Iowa.
Okay, I had to have that little joke in there. So I also promote the society with my car license plate. I had this vanity plate for about 12 years. It also supports my alma mater, Drayton University in Des Moines. When you come to Iowa, one of the first things you see is the people of Iowa welcome you. And of course, there's a little joke there on the cachet that I added. We hope you brought something to do, and that's kind of the way things are here. I'm trying to get rid of something on my screen here that I don't think belongs. But anyway, I'm a member of the AFDCS since 1990. I belong to the American Philatelic Society from at that same point in time. I'm an ATA member, and I also belong to ESPR. I have a large collection of Black Heritage covers, and I like to support the ESPR group. They're an interesting group, and I enjoy their company when I see them at shows. I also belong to the Robert C. Graebner chapter in the Washington, D.C. area. This particular screen shows the first two cachets that the Graebner chapter produced back in 1977. And I collect Graebner covers. Graebner supports itself with cover sales, and they produce some really great covers over the years. I also belong to the Gracie group out in Southern California, the Claude C. Reese chapter. Here's two covers. The first Tuberfest cover that Dave Bennett did, and the one he did for the one that was just last year, the 31st one. The Reese chapter, I'm the token Iowa member of the Reese chapter. Let me just put it that way. And they're an interesting group, and we've had a number of Zoom meetings with them, and I really enjoy their company at shows too, as I do the Graebner chapter. I actively collect covers for the stamps. I collect these 3 Iowa stamps. I'm always looking for covers for these. I collect the Roy Rogers and the Fred Rogers stamps and the Janis Joplin. Janis is one of my favorite musicians. I love Janis. I have a large accumulation of Mayflower stamp covers of the most recent stamp, and I collect the Seattle World's Fair stamp. As a 14-year-old boy, I attended the Seattle World's Fair, and so I have been collecting the Seattle Fair covers for maybe 30 years. Right now, I make covers for the Foster Miller First Day Cover Dealership for the beneficence of the AFDCS. It's a very laid-back operation, as you can tell. Here's a picture of Foster at a cachet maker's bourse. Of course, the adult beverages are not available to all cachet makers bourse. This one happened to be at a Embassy Suites Hotel, and the cachet makers bourse coincided with the manager's happy hour. And Foster and I have a love of adult beverages, and anytime we could combine selling covers and maybe having a cold one, we took advantage of it. So this is a fun little picture I've had of Foster for a long time, and I hope he isn't too embarrassed. Now I want to take a brief look at the history and evolution of cachets. I'm not an expert on this subject. There's a fellow that belongs to the Reese chapter, Bob Lewin. Many of you know him. Bob is a first day cover scholar and has done extensive research on the subject. Bob has a number of presentations, and I don't know if they're available from the AFDCS or they're just on Zoom. I've seen a couple of them where Bob has discussed the first cachets and how they've evolved over time, and he has a theory that maybe the George Lynn cachets were not the first ones, and it's very interesting. My look at the history of cachets is not quite as involved. And basically, it's just things I have in my collection, and I just kind of want to look at what is a cachet and how did it start. You know, the first cachets were basically just printed black and white. Somebody would get a printer, or maybe they had a printer in their business, and they would print a cachet, put the stamp on, get the cancellation. This is an early one from the 30s by the Philadelphia Record Stamp Club. They were very simple. Here's the first art craft cachet, which everybody wants one of. Very simple, single color printing. Here's an early cachet from my collection where somebody took a sticker. These stickers were probably available from the State Fair Board and from the Iowa Centennial Committee, and put them on your mail to promote the event in 1938. Somebody put it on an envelope, and it serves as a cachet. Here's an early Lynn print cachet where they've added a second color to kind of enhance the cachet. Here's an early Harry Eork cachet. It's small. Most of his cachets were kind of this size. I bought this particular cover because of the address on the envelope. It went to somebody who was in the CCC down in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, building something at the 772nd camp. This was an interesting cover. Here is an early Anderson cover where the cachet is purple and the stamp is purple, and of course Anderson is famous. In many years he made covers for having many different colors of cachets, and mostly single color cachets, but this is early Anderson. Here's another Harry Eork cover where Harry has kind of a frame, and then as the different stamps were serviced on this set of stamps from the 1940s, he put a printed a picture in the vignette. This is a Fidelity cover, and now we're after World War II, and the cachets are getting a little bit bigger. We have a two-color picture, but it's red, white, and blue. And then we started getting into the four-color printing. This is a Staley cover, where the printing gets more sophisticated, colorations get more sophisticated, the artwork gets more sophisticated, and we're starting to move into the golden age of first day covers. Walter Crosby, probably, according to the Walter Crosby catalog, is probably the most prolific cachet maker ever. There's a figure in that catalog that says Walter might have serviced as many as 1 million different covers. I don't know if that's true or not. I have a lot of them. I enjoy all of them. His covers are distinctive because they always have this little black and white photograph attached to them. It's glued on. Not all of his covers have that, but a majority of them do. I have made covers in the past where I have glued on photographs to a cover, and I want to tell you, the first time I did it, I made 150, and I thought I was never going to get them finished. It's just really a tedious job, and to think back of all the covers that Walter Crosby made, and I'm sure he had help doing it, but it just kind of boggles my mind that he could have that many photographs and get them glued on, and whatever glue he used too seems like hold up over time because they don't fall off. Here's a thermograph cover. This is by an unknown cachet maker, and thermography is where the ink goes on and then it gets heated up and it kind of bubbles up onto the envelope. It kind of forms a relief image on it. This one happens to be kind of a favorite of mine, and the cachet maker, according to Malone, is unknown. One of the first day covers I ever owned, I got for Christmas when I was probably 12 years old. My parents knew I had been sending orders to H.E. Harris in Boston, buying stamps for my album. And my dad sent in and bought a collection of 100 first day covers, and it had album pages and a 3-ring binder, and I got it for Christmas that year. And every one of those covers had a rubber stamp cachet. I mean, I didn't know the difference. I was 12. What did I know? But they all had it. And of course, Harris probably had boxes of covers that had no cachets on them. So they developed this rubber stamp, and some poor guy, you know, just bang, 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 put the rubber stamp on it, and then you had a cachet. And they came in different colors. Most of them were crooked. Many of them were poorly inked. I still have most of the covers, and this is one of the better ones I picked for the presentation tonight. But the first day cover cachets I had was this rubber stamp. Now we get into the really kind of rarefied air of hand painted covers. I don't own a lot of them, but I do own this one by May Wygant. I'm sorry. And you know, they're all works of art. I actually have 3 different copies of this particular cachet, and they're all a little bit different. The clouds are different. There's a little bit of difference in each one. Here's a cover that I don't own. Doug Weiss owns this one, and he'll sell it to you for $700. But I think it's a beautiful example of a Dorothy Knapp cover. And truly, probably some of the best hand-painted covers, the best hand-painted cachets you'll find from the era. And you know, Doug of course, has the book on the Dorothy Knapp covers that you can buy and learn all about them. This is a hand-painted cachet by Lee Mitchell that I do own, where he has incorporated the stamp as a part of the design. It's kind of an interesting cover. And these kind of cachets take a tremendous amount of work and forethought. And it's truly kind of always amazes me when I see something like that. There are new cachet makers still making hand-painted covers. This is a cover by Bob Emmerich. This is the winning cover in the last Cachet Makers Fourth Society. Bob's a talented artist, makes a lot of great covers, does a lot of commission work with people. I think he's only about 5 or 6 years behind on commission work. So if you want a commission from Bob, you know, you got to be patient. But he does a wonderful job, and a really nice looking cover that really captures Arnold Palmer. Back in the 60s, we started seeing, you know, commercial covers from Fleetwood. This happens to be a Fleetwood, Art Master, Artcraft. They start using multiple colors. And they started printing these things as fast as the press would go. I mean, they were printing tens of thousands of covers. That's why you find them in the dollar boxes, and that's why the resale value on it is so low. But this was a thing that was starting to really show up in the 1960s. I was a kid then. A lot of us probably started as preteens or teenagers collecting covers. And this is the kind of stuff that we were looking for, and we thought it was really cool. We saw it, and I spent some money later on buying this stuff, thinking it was really good. For a number of years, I used ArtoPage covers. And these are basically a generic design with some text in there to explain what was going on. The generic designs have several different of them, but I serviced covers for probably a good 4 or 5 years with a subscription to ArtoPage. Colorado has been around a long time. It's still being produced by a gentleman in Florida. It has exquisite artwork, and it produces a lot of really nice stuff. Does anywhere from 1 or 2 different cachets per issue, kind of depending. And they're still available, and they're still being made right now. This is a velvet tone, and it's a flocked cover. I have to be a little careful when I say flocked covers, but this is from my Seattle collection. It's a fuzzy ink printing. I'm not quite sure how it's done. I'm not a printing expert, but it is one format that's out there. This is a cachet that's made by Dave Curtis. Maybe a lot of you know Dave or have his covers. Dave is a true artist. Dave uses block printing. He takes a linoleum block, and with every color he uses, he carves a little bit of the block away to get the multiple colors. This happens to be one of his most recent ones for the Mayflower event. I have a lot of Dave Curtis covers. I've known him for a long time. He's not real active in cachet making right now, but he's a great guy to know, and if you know him, you'll agree with me. This is a cover that was made by Kerry Hefner. A lot of you know Kerry. Kerry's the guy that handles the awards at AmeriCover. Kerry went all out for this Iowa issue back in 1999. Kerry lives in Omaha. Kerry clipped a photograph from a magazine or probably a booklet of Tulip Time in Pella, Iowa. Pella, Iowa is historically a Dutch community, and they have a big tulip festival there every year, and it's a big tourist deal, and they get tens of thousands of people come in on a weekend to look at the flowers. And so Kerry just clipped the artwork and pasted it on. So it's a paste on cachet. Kerry also did this one where he took a page from a booklet and folded it into an envelope and made a cachet. Here he took a map from a atlas, an island map, and did the same thing, folded it into an envelope, and that appears as the cachet. And then of course here's everyone's favorite, the gold foil cachets, the ones that everybody, when they find a booklet of Uncle Harry left and they think they've won the lottery, and then they soon discover that, well, maybe they're not quite as valuable as they thought they'd be. I do collect them. I collect them for issues that I collect. They're kind of an odd size, and they are what they are. I don't have a whole lot of them except for the issues I collect. Here's an add-on cachet that was done by Kate Hayden. Kate lives out in Salt Lake City. When I look at Kate Hayden's artwork, I think of Grandma Moses. I don't know why I think that. She has a primitive style that I think is indicative of the Grandma Moses style. Kate uses pencils, colored pencils, and she usually just puts the cachet right over any addresses there. You can see the address in the background. I've purchased a number of her cachets over the years, and they're all interesting. They're all kind of unique. And so you've got the add-on cachet is another form of cachet that's available. And here's a cachet that is done on a card. It's done by one of my oldest friends in the first day cover world, by Lloyd DeVries. And I think this is one that kind of shows his work. He really takes a lot of time finding his cachets and doing the layout. It's not on a number 6 envelope, but it's a very collectible item. This was extremely well done, one of my favorites. And lastly, back in 1990, I was kind of getting back into the first day cover world. And I called a stamp dealer in Washington, D.C., because I was thinking about making some covers, and he didn't have anything in stock. And he just says, get a box of crayons and make your own. And then he hung up. And so I kind of took his advice. I found some of the colored markers that my kids had, and I conjured this up. And you can maybe tell from looking at it that, boy, I didn't continue with doing that. Now I want to kind of get into the business of what the program is tonight. I want to show you the software and the equipment I use. The 2 computers that I use are old. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I use a Dell Latitude B630 laptop that runs Windows XP. And in a little bit, you'll understand why I bought that particular machine. I bought it used on eBay. It's refurbished. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It just runs and runs and runs. And it's an easy machine to use, and it does a great job. I also have, and I'm showing tonight's presentation on a Dell Inspiron 1 all-in-one. It runs on Windows 7. It's old. It just, again, is another Energizer Bunny. It just runs and runs and runs. I'm not ready to make the move to Windows 10 or 12 or 30 or whatever is going on. My equipment's working fine. And so it's kind of situation of, there's no reason to fix it if it ain't broke. The software I use is almost as old. In 1999, I bought my first computer. It was an IBM. It cost a fortune. I mean, I bought a scanner and a printer, and I didn't get change back from $2 grand. I mean, it was just something else. But I was interested in having a personal computer, and I bought this home publishing program from Microsoft and this photo program called PhotoSuite. The Microsoft program is basically a program that was set up to make newsletters and greeting cards and posters and stuff like that. It came with a set of discs, and a number of the discs had artwork on it, and it was a package deal. And PhotoSuite was kind of a similar thing. It's a program where you can manipulate photographs, enlarge them, change them, a lot like Photoshop, and it's called PhotoSuite. So I bought these discs back in 1999, and I'm still using them. And one of the reasons I'm using them is they run on XP. And they run like champs on XP. And I've been using them so long that, I really don't want to learn anything else because it's working. I'm getting fairly good results from it, and I'm going to stay with it until I can't do it. I print my covers on a Canon Pixma 2600 inkjet printer. Another old piece of equipment, no longer made. It's a photograph printing printer. It doesn't have a scanner. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but the envelopes come in, they turn 90 degrees, and they pop out. I'm on printer number 4 of these. I bought a series of them on eBay, new in boxes. I have a new one in the box in the closet here in my stamp room when this thing finally breathes its last breath. I get about 2 years out of them, maybe a little bit longer. I can't tell you how many cartridges I used in that period of time because it uses quite a bit of ink, depending on the cachet. I only use name brand Canon ink. I think it's important for the cachets to use the good stuff. There are generic, cheaper, rebuilt versions available. They're a little dicey. I use them in another printer I have for email and for scanning, and the life of them seems to be different every time. With Canon name brand ink, I can get a consistent product with a consistent lifespan and consistent quality, so I always use Canon ink for it. And the only thing that will happen is that one day these cartridges may not be available, but right now even my local Walmart has them, so there's enough demand. They're still out there. The envelopes we use, Foster Miller provides those. They're number 6, and the 25%, 24-pound rag envelopes with no glue flaps. They're heavy, they're stiff, they print well, and particularly have a long lifespan, and they have a nice bright white color too. So you get good results when you use them. The software that I'm using for publishing, the Microsoft Publisher, is still pretty much available. It's part of Microsoft Office now, and you can purchase it separately, I guess. My Dell All-in-One does not have Microsoft Office, and I haven't. I debated a couple of different times to buy it and upgrade the Publisher program, but the old one was still working, and I didn't really have a reason to do it. But if you want to experiment with it, you may even have it on your computer right now. If you have Microsoft Office, chances are the Publisher is part of the package you have. It's an easy program to use, and we're going to use it here in just a little bit. Photo Suite is still available. You can buy it online. There are older copies available. I think if you want an upgraded copy, the 2007 model or 2007 issue, which is available on eBay, is the one that most people think is the best one. I think the newer versions are a little harder to use, but if you want to get it, it's still out there. Now, here's where you say, okay, there's no way in hell that any of that could work. And you're probably thinking that. If you're not, you're saying, my God, this guy's using old equipment, and could it possibly go? Well, we're going to make a cachet tonight for the Year of the Tiger stamp. The new stamp coming out later this week, and tonight's cachet will be that. This is the 3rd stamp in a series of the masks they've used for the Lunar New Year. I think they're a nice design. I think they're some of the best designs that the Postal Service has put out over the years. Some of the older versions they put out were kind of little, you couldn't really tell what it was, but these have been popular. I like the Year of the Tiger stamp. Now, one of the first things you want to do when you're doing cachet making is to make coffee. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you skip this step, you'll be sorry. You need a hot caffeinated beverage to keep you going during the process. This is an important part of the series tonight. And if you like tea, that would be okay too. But you need something to keep you alert, and because a lot of things can go wrong when you're messing around with this stuff on your computer. So you need the caffeine to stay alert. One of the first things I do when I'm making a cachet on my computer is I go to the Bing search engine. I'm looking for an image. Bing is the go-to place for images. Google has images, but getting images off of Bing are so much easier. It's just a right click and you can save the image to the file. There's a billion different images on Bing. Anything you're looking for, usually if you search with a 2-word search, you can find it. This particular cachet we're going to make tonight, I put in Tiger Art, and I got all kinds of good stuff. It comes up easily, and like I say, it's easy to download and save to your computer. This was an image that I really liked, and I looked at it. It didn't take long to find it. I think it kind of it just spoke to me. I said, "This is the image for the tonight's cachet." Hang on, I'm going to take a little water break here. Thank you. Now, sometimes you'll run into an image you like and it has a watermark. Well, this is fine. Watermarks are there for a reason. And you know, they do something, you might look at the image and say, ah, it's got a watermark, I can't use it. Well, that's not necessarily true. I've removed a lot of watermarks with my photo suite program. It's not impossible to do with Photoshop or things like that. It takes some time. You've got to know the program. You've got to know how to do it. But you can also go online, and there are watermark removers, like this first one at PowerSoft, where you can upload the image to their site, and they'll take out the watermark for you and give you a nice clean image. So watermarks are not necessarily a deal breaker if you find an image you like, but they are out there and they're there for a reason. Now, I do want to talk about using images from the internet. This is a subject that some people think that you shouldn't do it, but there are a billion images on the internet, and if I was a intellectual property rights holder and I had an image that I didn't want anybody to use on the internet, I would make sure it was never on the internet. And that's just my personal view. This is all I want to say about images from the internet. It's part of the deal. Almost everyone who makes cachets on their computer is not an artist. I am not an artist. I cannot make artwork that I can use. You've seen my artwork. You know that's true. So I do want to say that the subject is out there. I don't want to debate it or discuss it any more than this. I will give you one quick analogy. The speed limit sign there, when I was living in the Washington, D.C. area, I had to travel on the Capitol Beltway to and from work. Now in the morning, the speed limit on the Capitol Beltway is 55 miles an hour. In the morning, the speed limit was never an issue because I never got above 50 miles an hour, and I often had to stop dead 3 or 4 times before I got off on my exit. So in the morning, it was nothing to do with the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. However, at 6 o'clock when I was going home, the Capitol Beltway was moving its speed. And if you live in a city and you drive on these kind of roads, you know there's a cadence to the road, there's a rhythm to the road. And the Capitol Beltway, when I was going home, was normally moving about 70 miles an hour. I mean, there was no accidents or anything, it was rolling. 4 lanes at 65, 75, 70 miles an hour. Now, when I got up on the exit and I knew what it was, I knew I had to just keep up with speed. But had I gone at 55, I would have been the problem child, and I would have gotten the one-figure salute as everybody drove by me. So that's all I'm going to say about images from the internet. Yes, I'm aware of it. And if somebody wants to talk about it later, I'll try to dodge your question. After I find the image I want, I load it to a scan disk so I can move it to my laptop. My 2 computers are not hooked together. I just pop it on a scan disk. Scan disk goes into the laptop. Here's the laptop. My coffee is ready to go. All I got to do is start calling up the programs and get busy with the cache. The first thing I do is take the image I found, and I bring up Photo Suite. And so Photo Suite is fairly simple to use. The menu is fairly simple to use. Usually what I do with an image is I crop it first. And that's the first button here at the top, and then later on I can maybe touch it up or use paint and draw to get rid of any unwanted text that's on the image or any unwanted things that are on the image that I don't want to see later on. So here's the image on the Dell. This is raw. It's right off the disk. It's big, it's huge. First thing I do is I crop it down. I make it a little bit smaller. There was some text down here at the bottom that I erased. And so this is my final image. The next thing I do is I bring up the publishing program. Now the publishing program, again, was designed to make newsletters and things like that. So the blank project page shows an 8.5 by 11 blank sheet of paper. That's basically what this is. I'm only going to use a small portion of it. But this is what it looks like when I open a new project and have a blank page. I would suspect that the new versions of it are pretty much the same. the area of the envelope that I'm trying to put a cachet in is fairly small. It's about 2 3/4 inches wide, and it's about 3 1/4 inches high. And this is the area that I'm trying to put a cachet in. I'm a left side cachet maker. I want to have room for the stamp and the cancel to be on the right side. And so when I'm doing that, I only use a part of the screen. The options for adding images and text and things are fairly simple in this particular program from Microsoft. I start by saying add something, that will be text, or change something, or add. It's really easy, quick to do. So here I've added the image that I've cropped, and it's sitting on my publisher page. Next thing I do is I rotate, because I've got the rotation is important, and in a minute you'll understand why. I resize it. Now, the upper area, the upper left-hand corner of the project page is all I use. I'm using, it's about 3 inches wide, and it's about 3 1/2 inches high is the envelope, and I'm trying to squeeze this artwork into that little corner. Because when I print the cachet later on, I need it in this orientation for it to come out in the proper orientation on my envelope. So the first thing I do is I get the image up there, and I get it small, and I get it turned. And I printed the cover, this is what the envelope would look like. The image is on the left side, it's in the upper part of the envelope, and this is where we are on the cachet making right now. Next thing I do is I start to add some text. Hang on a second, I'm getting please remove this window screen. There we go. In the publisher program, I'm sorry for that little delay there. I keep getting this little message on it that people in, and I'm not sure why I'm getting it, but it covers up my text that I've got on the slides. I can't read them. Anyway, the publisher program allows me to kind of zoom in on the deal, so I'm not, just looking at that small little bit of space on the program. Next thing I do is I add text. In many cases, I use the shaped text screen here. I put in here the title, You're the Tiger. It defaults to Arial, and then I change it. I change the font, I change the color, I put a little outline around the coloration, and then I rotate and resize the text underneath my image. It's a fairly click, click, click kind of thing. And it may look difficult, but it's really not. The computer does it for me. I can, if the default changes for resizing don't give me what I want, I can kind of click on the image or the text and kind of make it smaller just by moving the corners back and forth. It's a fairly easy process to do. And so if I print the envelope, this is what it would look like right now. Next, I'm going to add some more text. I'm going to tell a little story about the You're the Tiger. I found a little vignette about the why the third animal in the zodiac. So I've added the story here. I've added a date, which I just put right on top of the image. The program allows you to have the image in the back, text on top. You can layer it. It's seamless. It doesn't have any edges or anything on it. Most of this is pretty easy to do. Next thing I do is run spell check. Spell check is not foolproof. I've made cachets recently with spelling errors and numbering errors. It happens. This is again why you have that caffeinated beverage. I mean, you've got to check the thing. You've got to make sure you've got everything spelled right, because once they're printed, you can't change it. And or if you have a typo, you can't change it. So this is the way the cachet would look if I printed it now. Now, on the text at the bottom, the program allows me to center the text, or to use what they call justified. And this is in justified. And justified is kind of like a newspaper or book printing, where the text is always the same length no matter how many words are in it. And little spaces are added or combined to make the text all fit into a nice square. I don't use this every time, but I did in this one, and I think it kind of adds to a nice rectangular image, which is kind of what I wanted. And so now I've got a little text here describing that the tiger thought he was in the race, in the select race, but when he got out of the river, he found out he was number 3 behind the rat and the village of ox. This is the story of the year of the tiger. Next thing I like to do as often as I can is add a pictorial signature to the envelope. Many times I just use a text, but this particular one I'm going to use a pictorial issue. Here it is. We've got Cub Evans and Cachet, Foster Miller is involved in, and it's for the AFDCS. So this is the signature I'm going to use, and here's how it fits. It goes down here in the corner of the cover, and you know, it fits in there. Now it's time to print. Had there been a stamp on the envelope and a cancellation, that would have been right under my thumb. The envelope goes in on its side with the stamp up. This is again why I used the left-hand corner of the publisher program. The publisher program prints opposite the way on the program. And so I put the envelope in there and I hit print, and Bob's your uncle, I have a cover pop up. And you can see that the cachet is on the lower part of the envelope on this particular one. They're all that way. And so now we have a cachet printed, and you can see the orientation on the laptop. It's got to be in that orientation to get it print out on the envelope. Now, I suppose there's a way to keep everything level, but I can tell you from experience, trying to print envelopes the long way and having the short way feed through it, they twist, they turn, they buckle up. It just doesn't work. You've got to put them through on their side so they'll travel through the printer the proper way. And I've been doing it this way since God knows 1999, and it works. And this is how I do it. So this is kind of the semi-finished product. When I made this particular slide, I didn't know the first day of issue date. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it on this particular cachet or not. The first day cancellation pretty much does that job. And I don't always put the first day of issue date on the cachet because the new digital cachets do a good job of that, and the date is on the cancel, and there's plenty of room for that. And many times I think it's redundant. I don't do it. I may tweak this particular cover a little bit before I print them for sale for the AFDCS. If Foster has some comments, he may let me know if he wants to change something. In most cases, Foster and I have a good relationship. He handles the marketing, I handle the artwork, and we don't really mess with each other too much on either subject. Once the cachet is done, I save the file on the laptop, and then I archive and back it up on ScanDisks. I found this to be important. Quite often I have to go back and reprint something. We get a hot seller, we'll many times service more covers, and so I keep them that way. And since 1999, I've made literally thousands of cachets with the software and equipment. And like I said, I may tweak this a little bit before it's printed on the service covers. I signed my covers CEC, Cub Evanson Covers. And a quick story on this is that when I signed up for eBay, eBay said you should use a handle, don't use your real name. Well, Cub Evanson was the handle I thought of. And Cub Evanson comes from my childhood. My father was a John Deere dealer. During planting and harvest season, it was not uncommon for us to get phone calls in the evening where a farmer needed a part. And back in the 50s, we didn't get phone calls at night unless somebody died. I mean, kind of thing. So my sister and I would bug my dad. Oh, who was that on the phone, Daddy? Well, my dad was always one step ahead of us. And so he made up this name, Cub Evans. He never called. It was always Cub Evanson. And so after a while, we stopped asking, which is what my dad wanted. And then later on, we caught on to the joke, and it kind of became a family joke. If you wanted to be evasive about something, Cub Evanson would be involved. And so when I signed up for eBay, Cub Evanson was the first thing that popped in my head, and it is an homage to my late father. Now I want to show a few covers I've made over the years, a little show and tell. There's samples of cachets I've made. They demonstrate the various styles that I've used over the decades. When I first started making covers, I was making them on a copy machine. I unfolded an envelope and I made a template, and I would find the artwork and I would paste it on there, and I would go to Staples and I would buy a box of expensive resume paper, and I would take the crummy paper out of the copy machine. I put my resume paper in, I'd start running them off, and then I would cut out the envelopes with an X-Acto knife and glue them and fold them. So the early ones are all copy art, very little text. If I found something with a text I could use, here's an early one I made in 1994. I went to this particular ceremony in DC. Unfortunately, I left before the open bar and the food was served, so I missed the party. Some of the early cachets I made with the copier had no text at all, but everybody knows the story on this one. I went to this particular first day ceremony in New York City too, where the triangle stamps were issued, and I folded up some paper and I made triangular covers. This is the only time I ever did it. They were a little tough to make, but I did make them for that, and then they are kind of unique. And these were all canceled at the show. I also went to this ceremony in New York City. I got the artwork from this from a coloring book. Again, another copy machine cachet. I'm a longtime reader, The New Yorker. The New Yorker has the best cartoons in the world. This is the New Yorker cartoon. Again, no text. Another little fun cachet. And here's another one from the New Yorker cartoon, the fun cachet. I also made a number of covers with clip art. Here's one. We'll put a little frame around the stamp the artwork. I experimented in the early days with colored paper. Made a lot of covers with colored paper. I found that colored paper cachets don't age well. The glue comes through them. The white resume paper, it still looks great. There's no glue stains on it, but some of these color paper ones I used weren't the high quality. Maybe they were, I don't know. I didn't do it very long, but this is one of them I made. I've got the computer in my staff room, and it's 1999, and I go to the show in New York City at the pier where the Iron Rand stamp is going to be issued. And the pier's in the Hudson River, and I really thought that this was going to be a dud stamp. I went up to the show mainly to buy some covers. I was selling on eBay, and or I was going to sell on eBay, and I was going to buy a computer. I hadn't bought the computer quite yet. This cover was made after, a little bit after the fact. Anyway, at the show, it quickly became known that Ayn Rand collectors in the house, who were not stamp collectors, but they were buying every stamp and every first day cover they could get their hands on. They didn't really care what it cost. So I went home and started rethinking my plans for the Ayn Rand cachet. And I found a book where Frank Lloyd Wright had designed a house for her. This is the house, but it never got built. You know, she commissioned the drawings and they talked about it, but they were both probably the personalities didn't work out anyway. I put this on a cachet, and over the years on eBay, this turned out to be the best-selling cover I ever made. I used to, when I found out how good it was, I went back to Kansas City and I bought 200 serviced envelopes. And this is one of them. This is the envelope you get the blank and the stamp from the castle on it. I bought 200 serviced envelopes before they went off sale. And most of them were printed with this particular cachet. It was a money maker. I would put it out there maybe once a month, and I was never disappointed with it. So this is, over the years, this is probably the best-selling money maker I ever made. Back in the 1990s, I also did some Celebrate the Century stamps. I love Casey Stengel. The famous quote here on the cachet is something that he's well known for. Key to being a good manager is keeping the players who hate me away from those who are undecided. And that's Casey. It's one of my favorite covers from that Celebrate the Century issue. In the year 2000, I went to the ceremony in DC for the new White House bicentennial stamp. Here I'm starting to get a little more coloration on the cachets. I'm using colorized borders with color in it. I made probably 30 or so cachets for this. It was a popular issue. It sold well on eBay. I continued on with the hologram space stamps. Made a lot of these. Didn't make a lot of this particular stamp because it was expensive, but made a bunch of those. Michael and I were talking earlier about the Peanuts issue. I made, I don't know, 30, 40 different cachets for this one. It's a very popular issue, well received. I will digress here for a moment. I have a cachet where Snoopy and Woodstock are playing hockey on a frozen bird bath. And when I listed it on eBay, I had another cachet where Woodstock is running the Zamboni on the bird bath. And that's how I listed it on eBay. Woodstock runs the Zamboni on the hockey bird bath. Within 2 hours, the cover had been taken down off eBay, and about a week later, I got a cease and desist letter from the Zamboni company because they vigorously protect the name Zamboni. Don't ever use Zamboni anywhere on the internet unless you've got the rights. I mean, I was really shocked. I put it out there, put the same cover out there where Woodstock cleans the ice and didn't have a problem. But Zamboni was the lightning rod that got me zapped in that particular cachet. I also made a number of express mail covers. This particular style of cachet just shows an image, and underneath the cancellation, I've used some. And it's a very simple design. A lot of covers over the years with this particular design. Here's another one with a similar, with some clip artwork. Continued on with the military theme. This is one of the first military covers I made for the Distinguished Soldiers issues. Military cachets have been very popular over the years. I know a lot of retired military people that are active collectors. I know 3 West Point graduates that are active day cover collectors. And this particular issue in that way, I made a lot of military covers. They continue to be popular. When the West Point stamps came out in 2002, I had moved to Iowa. But I knew this was going to be a biggie. I bought all kinds of related combo stamps. I probably had about 60 or 70 different cachets and versions of it. I was right. They sold like popcorn. They were very popular. Here's a couple of the combo covers I made. They had this kind of same theme with the class on it. a fairly simple cachet. Continued on with the distinguished Marines, Chesty Puller. The marine covers, by this time I was no longer selling much on eBay. The marine covers were popular. This particular cachet has a different design on it. I'm using a circular text, and I'm putting an image inside the circle. I call this the donut cachet. And I made a lot of donut cachets over the years. And this is kind of one of the first ones I made. I made covers for the Air Force Academy. The Zoomies bought lots of covers from me. I had maybe 50 different cachets for it. Again, military, retired military and active military people are active in this particular genre. They like covers, they collect stamps. And I cater to them with this kind of cover. Here's another one with a military theme. I went to this particular ceremony in Topeka for the Kansas statehood. Arlene Ermy was born in Kansas, so he got a cachet for the celebrities born in Kansas. Here he is, the Sergeant Hartman, his probably most famous role. Here's one of the last military covers I'm going to show. This was a Celebrate the Century stamp cover. I took this particular picture at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial one day when I was there. Been to the memorial many times when I lived in the DC area. As I was doing the cachet for this particular stamp, the things that came to mind is how quiet it is at the memorial. Yeah, there might be a crying baby or there might be a toddler jabbering away. But in most cases, it's one of the most silent places you'll find in DC. And finding quiet places in DC is hard to do. This particular part of DC is that way. And every time I was there, it was the same. I did a number of statehood cachets, starting with California, or actually starting with Iowa, but California ones have the same thing where I had a picture. I did about 90 different cachets for the California issue. There are a lot of cover collectors in California. I had no trouble selling most of them. Here's one where the personalities went. Some of my favorite personalities from California, Ernest and Julio. Bought a lot of their product over the years. They got a cachet. Here's a cachet from the Minnesota statehood stamp with a little joke on it. Governor of Minnesota is obligated every year to have an event called the fishing opener. Most of the governors of Minnesota are not fishermen or politicians. Jesse the Body Ventura was an exception. He loved the fishing opener, probably had the best ones ever. He loved the event. A little joke here is that you got to have the ice auger on there because in early Minnesota, when the fishing opener happens, about the second week of May, is when the stamp was issued. Also, there's a lot of ice on some of the northern lakes. And then the other joke is that I hope we get to the opener to see the governor throw out the first fish. That's the standard joke of the Minnesota opener. The current governor is not a fisherman. He arrived at the opener, was there about 10 minutes, and then jumped back in the limo and was back in St. Paul an hour later. The West Virginia stamp cachet here, again, kind of a circular image around. I've enlarged the image here. The circular text has now been kind of changed a little bit, but it still kind of bends around the image. Another little tongue-in-cheek joke about the nice people who live in West Virginia. In Nevada, I went a little crazy. I got into the Area 51 deal, little green men and flying saucers and bomb tests, and this is just a hodgepodge of stuff that was on my mind. Not one of the better cachets I've done, but it was fun to do. This is a cachet that was suggested by Mark Goodson. Mark lives in Indiana. He asked me to make some covers for him or make some cachets for him, and he said, you need to do one for Thomas Riley Marshall, 28th Vice President of the United States. And I said, who? He said, oh, he's the guy that coined the phrase, what this country needs is a really good 5-cent cigar. So I was on board immediately when I found that out, and this is the cachet I did for Mark. Here is the cover for the Nebraska statehood and a joke I stole from Jeff Foxworthy. You might be from Nebraska. If directions to your house include turn off the paved road. And that holds true for a number of states in flyover country. But I thought it would work well. And this is Nebraska cover. This is an add-on cover I did later on for Iowa. When the Ohio bicentennial came out, I used famous people born in Ohio. The cachet frame is now a map of Ohio. And we've got Hopalong Cassidy and, of course, John Glenn. When the Illinois stamps came out a few years ago, I researched the people born in Illinois, and I saw that Bishop Sheen was born in El Paso, Illinois. I immediately knew I had to do a cover for him. When I was a kid, I would listen to Sheen on the TV. He was a showman. Yes, he was a bishop, but he was a first-class showman. And I've always thought secretly that it would be great if there was a Bishop Sheen stamp. I know it's never going to happen, but I think he deserves it. But that's just my personal opinion. Contrary to Bishop Sheen, also born in Illinois, is Hugh Hefner. And of course, Hugh's made a fortune on it and headquartered in Chicago for many years, so there's a counterpoint to that. And I made one more for the Illinois stamp. In the Space Odyssey movie, Hal lets know that he became operational in Urbana, Illinois. And as a matter of fact, Hal's birthday was last week. It was January 12th. There's a little joke in this particular cachet because I misspelled mistake to kind of have a tongue-in-cheek joke about Hal being foolproof. When the Mississippi stamp came out, everybody thought Elvis. I thought BB because of the guitar on the stamp. And, love BB, big. This was the cachet I made for the society for that particular issue. The main statehood stamps, we continued the cachets of famous people born in the state. One of the best-selling ones we did was for Stephen King. Made a lot of these. Foster continues to sell out of it. I don't think we can't service anymore, I guess. Maybe we'll buy some cachets and stamp for some, but I don't know if they're still around or not. But we did LL Bean and a lot of people like that. But Stephen King was the best seller for this particular stamp. For the new Missouri stamp, I continued on with famous people born in, and I continued the military cachets, Omar Bradley, among others. And of course, Harry Carey. If you're a Cubs fan, you know Harry was from St. Louis and loved his Budweiser. Early on, I experimented making cachets with the stamp in the middle of the envelope. I had seen him on the internet, and I thought that might be interesting to do. This is one of the first ones I made. I really wasn't all that happy with it, with the particular cancel. So I started using the bullseye cancel. And here's a cachet I made in the Snoopy issue. It took me hours and hours to get this to work. And I was never really happy with it, but I finally got it. So the stamp fit on the image. It was fun to do at the time. I haven't done much of stuff like this since. I did do one in 2003 for this particular issue. Again, using bullseye cancel. Cloudscapes, I did the same thing using, in the window with a stamp in the windows. It's just, I don't know, this doesn't float my boat anymore, so I'm not doing this stuff anymore. I also like to show cachets where I can put a cigarette stuck in. Cigarettes are a big no-no. But anytime I can slip a cigarette into a cachet, I will do it. I did some recently for the Western wear stamps. And it's just a personal thing of mine. It's just a tongue-in-cheek joke. Cigarettes have been banned everywhere. This was a stamp that nobody is going to collect. With a stamp that maybe a lot of you don't even remember being out there. And so I did an Artie Johnson joke cachet, and Artie's got his little cigarette burning. For the Hudson River schools, a lot of these artistic stamps, I put the artists on an easel. And I made a cachet series like this with the artist self-portrait or whatever is on the easel. This is a series of covers I did for the butterfly stamps using clip art. I print 3 or 4 different butterflies, the same as the stamp on it, with the guy chasing them. This is a series of cachets that I made. When the muscle car stamps came out, I kind of used a design that's similar to the little sheet that's on the window when you buy the car, showing the specs of it. I owned a 1969 Chevelle convertible. It was a beautiful car. It had a white top. It was red. It didn't have a 454 engine in it. It had a 307. It was the best looking, worst running car I ever owned. I had nothing but mechanical problems with that engine. And I finally sold it, unfortunately, during the gas crisis of the 70s. I kind of wish I hadn't, but I hated the car the day I sold it. Here's an EID cachet I did. There are no images on the EID cachet. Again, no images on the cancellation to adhere to the Muslim thing of no images. And we didn't make very many of these. We weren't sure at the time how popular they're going to be. But this is an unusual text-only cachet that I made for this particular issue to keep adherence with the religious view of the stamp. Over the years, when I travel, I'll stop. When I went to America in 2012, I got on the Grand Canyon Road and spent the day at the Grand Canyon. And here's a cover I made at the post office and the cancel. And it was kind of fortuitous that year that the Arizona statehood stamp came out, and so it all kind of worked together, tied together for a nice cover. Again, I have part of me is still 12 years old. I'm still reading Mad Magazine. I'm still in love with Alfred E. Newman, and over the years there have been a number of Alfred E. Newman cachets that I've made. This is one of the first ones. I happened to, it was a copy machine cachet. I got some colored pencils and Googled around on it to give Alfred a little color. And this was number 1. When the Harry Potter stamps came out, the Mad Magazine people were masters of conjuring up different things, and this particular one shows that the United States Postal Service is just mad about Harry Potter, and here is the cover that some cachet conjured up in November of 2013. And I made just these for my collection, and these were never for sale. Here's one that I did make for the Society, again with Alfred as Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam's hat, kind of a throwaway stamp issue. And to make it a little different, I used the Alfred E. Newman Uncle Sam. In 2004, there was a cancellation for April showers for 04, and I used the Alfred E. Newman, famous Alfred E. Newman image for that particular issue. Last year for leap year, I did a leap year issue using the old leap year cover from Mad Magazine. Here's one that I made just for my collection. This was actually a part of a cover of the magazine. I enhanced it a little bit for the winter fun stamps. If you live in snow country, you know you should never eat the yellow snow. That's the joke here. When the Art of Magic covers came out, I found an image of Alfred pulling the rabbit and the rabbit pulling Alfred out of the hat. Little tongue-in-cheek joke. I thought it was fun. Did some of these for the Society. It was one of the 5 different cachets I did. I've also done cachets using my kids. My children were both born in Minnesota. Here's my son Mark wearing his Vikings regalia. This is also Mark with his baseball team. He's the small kid in the front row in the center. He played for the Red Sox. He played t-ball and baseball probably till about 6th grade, and then he got into tennis and golf and never picked up the bat again as far as I know. This is my daughter with her winter attire in Minnesota. When we moved to Virginia, my daughter started playing soccer in the 2nd grade, and she is the athlete in the family. She played in high school. Her high school girls team, the West Springfield High School in West Springfield, Virginia, were state champions. She went on to earn a 4-year full ride athletic scholarship at James Madison University in Virginia, and soccer and Title IX have been good to my daughter. When the Title IX stamps come out, I think you'll have a pretty good idea of what I'll be using. When the Art of Magic stamps came out, they had the souvenir sheets, and I did a number 10. And this particular one shows the same cachet but different versions. I cut a slit in the top hat, and I had a pop-up rabbit being able to pull out of it. The rabbit is printed on photo paper, and it's inserted inside the envelope. It comes up through the slit. It was done as a fun project. It was a good idea at the meeting, but in the actual getting it done, it was tedious. And as I was about halfway through it, wondered why I had thought this was such a good idea. They did sell pretty well. It's an interesting cover. It was just one of the few number 10s that I've done over the years for the AFDCS. Here's a unique cover. For AmeriCover 2019, the mood stamps were coming out about a week before AmeriCover. AmeriCover was in St. Louis. Foster and I were at the stamp show in Minneapolis on the first day of issue, July 19th. And I had the idea that anyone who had pre-registered for AmeriCover, we would put a stamp and a cancel on the name badge. I was the guy who was making the name badges. And so I would print 6 name badges on a sheet of name badge paper. And so I knew who the people were because I was the guy making the name badges. And so I told Foster, I said, why don't we put stamps on there and get them serviced? And so when people come to the show, their name badge will be an actual first day cover. And I said, do you think we can pull this off? He said, oh yeah, we can pull this off. So what happened was at the show in Minneapolis, we bought the stamps from the Postal Service, and I had already printed the name badges, and they were on a 8.5 by 11 piece of cardboard, and there were 6 name badges to the sheet. And so we affixed the stamps to the sheet, and then Foster expressed the stamp to Kansas City, and we got the bullseye cancel stamp on them, and then they express mailed the cover, the sheet back to St. Louis to the hotel. And so when we arrived at the hotel for the show, the covers were there, and we broke apart the sheets, and then Foster and Michael Litbeck and I sat in the show office for a couple hours and assembled the name badges in the holders. And so if you were pre-registered for AmeriCover in 2019, you got a first day cover badge that's unique. Now, when we were putting the covers together, luck would have it that we lost one of the name badges. A well-known dealer, we couldn't find his badge. Unfortunately, though, I had anticipated problems. Murphy's Law is one of my favorite things. I had serviced blank name badges. They had the stamp and the cancel, but they didn't have names or the text on it. So I was able to print one, and we were able to pull it off. So if you have one of these, hang on to it because they're unique. Here is an inaugural cover that I did recently. The Iowa caucus is a big deal. The politicians flocked to Iowa for a number of weeks before the caucus. Joe Biden was in my hometown, and he was traveling around in a bus that was the No Malarkey Special. He visited my hometown in December of 2019. I happened to be walking at the indoor track at the community college where his event was being held, and I saw the bus, and I snapped some pictures of it. Didn't think too much about it because at that particular point in time, I think the odds makers weren't giving Mr. Biden much chance of being president. It was interesting though, at the venue, I had seen before and seen the Secret Service details and the extensive security, And at this particular event, I only spotted 4 Secret Servicemen that Biden had. And there might have been maybe one or more on the bus, I don't know, but I only saw 4. And they were very, very far away from the then vice president, retired vice president at the event. I mean, it was actually, it looked to me like there was almost no security around it. That's not true today, though. Here is a cover that I did for Lloyd Degrees. Lloyd services a lot of covers for Canadian stamps. This is for the discovery of insulin. One of the interesting things about Canadian covers is that, think of this one, is the cancellations are so small. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It doesn't detract from the stamps, but and it gives cachet makers like me a little extra room to put the cachet on the envelope, which I took advantage of with this particular cover. This is one of my most favorite covers in the last few years, the Thoreau stamp. The early morning walk is a blessing for the whole day is pretty much the whole idea here. This cover speaks to me, and I put it in the show and tell here because it's one of my favorites. Here's a cover that we did for the recent coffee drinks for Larry Kearney. Many of you may have known Larry over the years. Larry's not with us anymore. Larry was a cover dealer, lived in Arlington, Virginia, worked for the Army Times. Larry was a Korean War veteran, a prisoner of war. And Larry was a character. Larry would come to shows with tables and tables full of dollar first day covers. But Larry also liked coffee. He would have a couple thermoses of coffee behind the table. And the joke with Larry was you had to be careful and look at your purchases from Larry's table because there may be some coffee spots on it. It probably didn't happen all that often, but it became a standard joke for Larry. So here's a cachet we did to honor Larry's memory, and there's some of his cachets in the back, and we put some coffee stains on it. And this is the Larry Kearney Memorial Cachet. SpaceX missions have been going on since 2020. Foster Miller had the idea that we should do covers for them. When he first came up with the idea, I wasn't all that keen about it. I said, well, what's SpaceX? I didn't know anything about it. Make a long story short, this is the first cachet we did with Bob and Duck going into space for SpaceX. The cachets pretty much have a standard theme. This is the last one we've made. This is cachet number 40. We've done 40 different cachets for SpaceX. They have sold extremely well. My idea that nobody would be interested in really wrong, and Foster was totally right. And they have, we made a couple thousand of them. The last issue we made 40 of this one, 48 of this particular cachet, and there were 3 other cachets. There was almost 400 cachets printed for this particular flight back in November. In a similar vein, the Blue Origin space flights that are being financed by Jeff Bezos and his rich friends have also been popular. And we've done cachets for that. This is the first one we did featuring Mr. Bezos. We also took advantage of the Shatner flight. We did this cachet and that cachet. Both of these were serviced with mostly Star Trek stamps from a few years ago. You can buy these cachets on eBay right now for $15 a pop from Carl Swain. Very, very popular. I think one of these or maybe both these, we're in the works to maybe print a few more. You know, they just have been one of the most popular covers of 2021. We continued on with the Blue Origin one. We did a special cover for Wally Funk, a veteran of the astronaut program, a very interesting woman. We serviced a lot of these with the Sally Ride stamp. We continued on with the New Shepard space flight that was done last month that carried Laura Shepard Churchley. Laura Churchley is the oldest daughter of Alan Shepard, the first man in space. She was on the flight, as was Michael Strahan. There were 6 people on the flight, so Laura and Michael were the 2 people that were on the flight that didn't pay, and everybody else paid $1 million or whatever to take a ride on the flight. These have been fairly popular. Again, I thought that this kind of stuff wouldn't sell, but it would have been real sleepers, and I'm kind of glad we did them. We also did one cover for the Virgin Galactic flight last summer, where Richard Branson went on the flight. It's been a one only. He had a little logistical problem with losing contact with NASA during the flight. I don't know when the next flight will be, but I found a very interesting image of Sir Richard in his spacesuit, looking as proud as anyone could ever be. This is one of the last covers I'm going to show. I'm a big fan of Ray Charles. I'm also a big fan of the Blues Brothers movie. And there's a scene in the Blues Brothers movie where Ray Charles pulls out a .45 and fires at a young boy trying to steal a guitar off the wall in his shop while he's negotiating with the Blues Brothers. And it's just something, you know, it's just a joke thing. The movie is just one joke after another, but it just kind of spoke to me, so we did a cachet for it. And here it is.
Pianos and my foot. Now go on, get. Breaks my heart. Boy, that young going bad.
I want to thank you for your attention tonight. I appreciate it. This was a thank you stamp we did earlier in the year. The thank you stamps that came out. And that last vignette had two purposes. I wanted to show the scene from the Blues Brothers movies I used for the cachets, but I also hope it was loud enough that anybody who dozed off during the presentation is now awake.
That's all, folks.
Okay,